ready to get started?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So, first thing we'll need to do is to elect officers. So chair, vice chair.
Okay.
What
will be
I
the-
nominate Chris O'Neill.
I'll second that.
Is that for
thing.
chair?
Yes, please.
Let's make it all, make
Oh, you weren't even late to the meeting.
I know, I got here early just in case.
make it all Irish, and I will
Okay.
do assistant, whatever it is.
Oh, all right.
Oh, just as a note, this meeting is being recorded by GCTV.
So
Budget
you probably
advi-
should,
budget
you probably
advisory
should
group.
vote.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
budget
should,
advisory
absolutely.
group.
So-
Yep, you'll need
Yeah.
to.
Probably vote for chair.
All right. So Janine has made a motion for Chris Oliver to be the chair.
Chris O'Neill.
Chris
Chris
O'Neill.
O'Neill.
Sorry, misspoke.
Almost got you.
Need name tags.
And that was seconded by Brian?
Sure, yes.
All right, so, all in favor? Aye.
All right, you
Anyone
take the-
opposed? Nope, he's in.
Take the reins now, Chris.
Okay, so, if I can find your agenda, is it up there? Oh, there we go.
So you just need a vice, you'll need a
Just
vice
vice
chair.
chair.
You want a seeker.
Vice chair. So you're asking
Motion
for
for-
a
Motion for a vice chair.
Okay, do I have a motion for vice chair? I do,
You do.
I do. Motion for vice chair for Brian,
Oh, yeah. I'll second that.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
congratulations, Brian.
Thank you, you too.
We'll be speaking quite a bit, I would assume.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Next is just to review the charge. So Gary, if you want to pull up the charge.
First of all, has everybody had a chance to look at the charge?
Yes.
And review it? Okay. I haven't seen it in a little while.
Do you want to read it, or can you read it?
I can't even really. I don't think we need to read it. It's been public for a while, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I guess the overall gist, how we're going to run this thing, is I'll take opinions from everybody. I'm here to listen and to try and get us all on the same path, to educate the public, to bring out as much information from the corners of this town as we can get involved in this conversation, find out exactly what our goals are, and move forward, make some recommendations to the select board and the various boards in town.
Chris, if you don't mind, I want to follow up a
Yeah,
little bit,
please
because
do.
when we initially talked about this group, which is now some time ago, Gary and I spoke about this, and it was really to create an opportunity for all committees to know kind of the detail level of the budget. So FinCom has been meeting the last couple of years with department heads as they've been going through with their budget. So FinCom has an idea, as the budget is created, of what those departments are asking for. I'm not sure if the conversation has included things they may be asking for that will not be funded. I'm not sure if that has been. It has. And at the select board, we just see the budget. And we really need to be aware of what's going on there. And school committee does that to the for the buildings. What does each building want, and what do they want that's not being funded? Again, that's not something typically we know, and that may not be something that FinCom goes into that detail just because of the size of that budget.
Right.
So this is important so that school committee and the school department understands what all the other budgets entail and what all those other departments are looking for,
And vice versa.
and vice versa.
Yeah. One of the things that that was queued up for me during capital, trying to set out the priorities for capital in the town, was at one of our meetings where it basically was brought to us, and I didn't understand myself what the priorities were of those individual departments,
And that's the
how-
job of capital,
Right.
to do that.
Yep.
And they meet with those various departments.
Right.
And prioritize with the representative from the department, this long list, what is the top that you need? And what can we, if we do this year, what do we do next year? So when we get that from the Capitol, it's been vetted.
It's been vetted, but not overly publicly, not publicly.
Oh, okay.
Is, I guess, the approach that I had to it was, well, I understand it, but I'm not sure if everybody in town kind of gets where those priorities are grown from, and what the issues are in back of those priorities. That kind of formulated the list per department. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's one of the things that I'd like to see. The priorities from all the departments come out in this group to educate the public on exactly what the heavy lifts are from each department and why the priorities are the way that they are.
The Capitol meetings are recorded, is that correct?
They are not, but they will be now.
Historically, they had not been recorded.
Okay.
They,
That
going
will be
forward, they will
helpful,
be
of course, to
recorded.
everyone. I realize not everybody watches the meetings, but
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that these guys listen to that select board meeting, they're involved in it, and they realize that there could be a little bit more light brought to that process. So now the capital meetings will be made public, and
Yes.
so we'll all have a better understanding. Chris?
Yeah, I think from the school committee's perspective, I think this goes a long way. I think for us, we're building collaboration. I can only speak for myself, but I know that there's obviously every year, Jim brings up priorities to us for capital, as well as just general operating expenses, right? And we hear things, either through Jim or just from reading the newspaper and from listening to people in town about what other departments need. And the last thing I want to do is create, pit one department against the other, and I think this committee certainly goes a long way towards building that collaboration.
That's a good point.
Nice.
So, we've discussed a few things on the communication portion of this particular group. Chris has brought up that level of collaboration that we need between the different departments, especially the school department, which I think in my short term of experience with this, with the select board anyway, has been pretty good in my opinion. And I understand from others that it hasn't always been that way. So that's always a positive thing too, I think. So I think the first portion has been brought to light. The second piece is the budget review and analysis. So review the preliminary revenue expenditure projections provided by the town administrator and the superintendent, and then discuss key budget drivers, the trends, assumptions affecting both municipal and school budgets. So,
And the key there is that this committee is short-term. We want to know by the time we're sitting down at our June town meeting.
Right.
We need to have a handle on this. This is not long-term, capital planning or long-term budgeting. This is the differences we can make in the FY27 budget discussions versus the FY26 budget discussions.
so should we, start to get into the review?
We can give some
Yeah,
high-level
high-level,
information. Over the so all the department budgets were due December 26th. We've begun one-on-one meetings with myself, Gary, and various finance committee members. And, what we're seeing is, we've been very clear to the departments on, we have limited revenue. And so everyone, I think, has done an excellent job of keeping their requests within kind of those constraints and really beyond contractual increases. The biggest increases are staff related. We have a comp and class study that's out, and so we're building in some funding sources in the back end, but beyond just step increases, essentially, there's really nothing actually that's coming across.
Other than utilities, we're
Yeah,
seeing
right.
a spike in
Well,
utilities,
contractual.
obviously. And the one-on-ones, as Cody mentioned, I just finished those. We have only the schools left to talk to. So we're actually 6 weeks ahead of schedule. This didn't happen until February of last year, which is good because it allows us time to talk to this group.
You were busy last year, Gary.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So the next piece of the schedule will be to go over the CIPC, once I develop that, We'll meet in February for CIPC in conjunction with the Finance Committee, meeting to review the budget documents that they send. Everybody calls it the Brian form, but it's the form that they put together. And so once we wrap that up, we'll meet with the bigger departments, schools, DPW, and police. So that's the time frame from now until March.
I think what's going to be important for this committee is looking at those infrastructure needs, that, human capital. What are all the departments asking for? Where is there duplication? Can we look at that? How can we better serve with what we have? Is it possible, Gary, can you send this committee
Oh, yeah,
that
sure. Yep.
timeline?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges we have is our fixed costs are rising, just like Jim and the school's experience. On the general government side, they're rising at a much higher pace than everything else. We're being told to budget 15% increase for health insurance this year. That's already an $8 million line item. We really can't do anything about that. Our pension assessment, we have that number, that's almost 10% increase, I believe.
Volk.
Right. These are things, unfortunately, we can't change those things. We are looking at health insurance, different opportunities. Now that we have a claim history through all of '25, we should start getting some data back from some of these providers, and we'll have a better idea. We did meet with one, and there was some potential annual savings, but there's a buy-in, significant buy-in, to the tune of $3 to $4 million. So then you tap in what the savings may be, and it's not a savings anymore, because even if you saved $400,000 a year, well, if you have to pay $4 million, it's going to take you several years, right, to make up for that. And then in the 7 or 8 years, once you're made up for that, is there still a savings? You don't know. So it's going to need to be significant or a really decreased buy-in in order for us to take advantage of that. But it is something we're considering.
We do have one other group that we're looking at, more of a local group. So they needed claims history up and through December. I've reached out to our consultant. We're going to be meeting with them very shortly to see what they can offer the town. But we're looking at insurance, but it's really a long-term proposal, because even if we were to pay somewhat of a buy-in, the savings could be substantial for the not only the budget, but for the employees. So that this is all things that we're looking at going forward. This hasn't been done in decades. Obviously, we're with Maya. They keep on increasing. This year, we're expecting anywhere north of 15%. So it's become a large budget piece to this.
So Gary, we had a couple of, it was brought up a couple of times that we may have an insurance committee.
We have a health insurance steering committee.
The steering committee is having meetings currently?
They're not having meetings. We're gathering the data at the current time.
Okay.
From the JPAs.
All right.
The local JPAs.
Yeah.
Once we have that information, we will then set up a meeting with the HISC. We also have the IAC, which is a group that involves all the unions.
Yep.
We meet with them once a year to discuss this. So the last time we did meet, we wanted to have this steering committee formed to look at the health insurance. So we probably will have a meeting sooner than later, once we hear back from this other group, the local group, so that we can now compare both groups that we have, and also bring in Maya to talk to them and, say, listen, this is what we're getting from other groups. Can you offer like-in-kind plans to the employees? Can that reduce the cost? So there are 3 groups, two and then one including Maya, that we have to review.
Okay.
But they needed claims history up and through December to make a good proposal to the town.
And they have all that now?
Yes.
Okay. Buy-in seems steep, really steep.
It is.
Is that?
It's, in this particular case, this group that quoted us, approximately that, one of the things that they've been able to do to keep their rates from increasing at 15% is they have very healthy reserves. And so they've dipped into their reserves essentially the past few years to mitigate that increase. So while Maya was 15% last year, this group was 7%, 8%, because they dipped into millions in reserves. Essentially, this would help replenish some of their reserves, which they utilize.
Yeah, and that's been their policy since that group is formed. They do have healthy reserves, as Cody mentioned. Also, Maya has a lot of overhead. So this group does not have a lot of overhead, and a lot of these local groups don't have the overhead that Maya has. So I think that's the reason why they can pass a lot of these savings on to the individuals.
So Maya provides services to over 200, I think, municipalities
Yeah.
throughout Massachusetts.
I mean, they-
So
they've
these are
got-
much smaller.
Right.
Yeah.
And small is not, not bad.
No.
But the impacts are, if you have a very substantial year on your claims, then it has a much wider impact on a smaller group.
Yeah,
So-
about 15 years ago, in the group that I chaired down the Cape, Dartmouth did present to them, and at that time, the claims history was not good.
Yeah.
And, but I think overall, and the time that it's passed, the claims history in town has become that much better.
Good.
So I think it's an attraction for a group to want to take Dartmouth going forward. We'll just have to make sure that it fits.
So a couple of takeaways. First one is, it's not great news on the insurance side, which is unfortunate, because that's a huge number for the town. And I was hoping, hope's not a plan, but I was still hoping that we'd have, we'd have a better response from the markets on the group policies. So that's a little disappointing. It's quite disappointing at 15 points out of the gate.
That's what we've been told to
Yeah.
estimate.
Yeah.
We'll have a better
Yeah.
idea actually at the end of the
Yeah,
month.
and we're still optimistic that we can get this, we can get this done before the end of this fiscal year. We're pushing the groups and, to make a decision. We want to hopefully incorporate this into the FY '27 budget if we have a savings.
Okay, and the good thing is that the insurance group will convene. I wasn't sure if it was off and running. I thought I was involved in that
You
initially,
were our
right?
appointment, yeah,
So I was
yeah.
a little concerned that I haven't heard. So the good thing is that, that it will convene, and we'll all
Yes.
have a pretty good shot at getting back to the actual numbers and see what the claims look like. Go ahead, Chris.
Gary, is the 15% across both the high deductible plan and the regular plan, the two plans? So
That's what they've told us to estimate, yeah.
Okay.
But typically, when Maya has an increase,
It's
for all
across the
plans.
board?
Yeah, and they
Okay.
usually give you a range, so actually at the MMA conference, they announced what that will be. And typically for us, it's been double digits for the last few years.
Right.
As I mentioned before, it's great when Maya was single digits, but now it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes in waves, for sure.
Yeah.
I was hoping that wave had crested, but apparently not. So that's a little unfortunate.
We were last at the low end of their range,
Yes.
though, in
Yeah.
terms of actual,
Yeah,
right?
there were
last
communities that
year.
were around 19% last year, so those communities this year will be over 20.
In Plymouth, I'm not sure if anyone's kind of read, Plymouth is in a very similar situation this year, where they thought, their budget felt pretty good going into it, and they just got their kind of insurance data, and it's thrown off. They have a significant deficit now, because almost half of their whole new growth for the town is being taken up by insurance costs. So, not that it doesn't help us, but we're not in this alone. It's certainly kind of a more global issue throughout the state. and the
Well,
country.
it's an important point to make. It's an important point for the residents to know exactly what we're up against when it comes to the larger items in the budget. What are the key drivers should we be concerned with, do you think? We've got the classification coming up.
Classification, we have
Classification.
rise in utility costs. We've seen that throughout all the budgets. Where, last year, we were looking at sometimes 15% rate increase on some of these utility costs, both electric and gas. I mean, you've seen it in your own personal use, the escalation. Healthcare definitely is a big one. And I think those are the main key drivers, and the class and comp study. We've built, and pension assessment. We've seen a major increase in the pension assessment over the last couple of years.
So I noticed in the audit that that a slight change in contribution has a pretty big impact on what the town's outlay is on the pension, right? Have we made any changes to that over the last few years, or what changes can be made? Not many, I would assume.
Well, so under the GASB rules, the pension should be fully funded by 2031. But what happens is, as we get closer to those dates, they keep pushing that date out. They assume a rate of a return of about 7%. You're not going to see that in the market. So that's the reason why they keep doing this asset smoothing. They keep pushing these numbers further out, which means for cities and towns that expense never really goes away
Right.
until it's fully funded. for us, we have a benchmark of like $1,500 per employee. We could adjust that, but favorably, I think in the last GASB actuarial, it actually went down. Prior to the one we just had, this one went up. So, you know, as we move forward in time, when that pension assessment becomes fully funded, that becomes a huge savings for the town. But as they keep pushing it out, we have to keep addressing that.
Brian?
You know,
I have a question. We're talking about insurance and a few other things and pensions. So can you compile a list of things, large budget items, that we really don't control? It's market forces.
Yeah, sure.
And what the implications are. So how much of the budget, it's a rhetorical
Yeah.
question, do you really have to fool around with? I have a sneaking suspicion it's not going to be very much.
I'd say that's accurate, but we'll put together a list.
Yeah, we can put a list together.
And so therefore, the only way you're going to cover this stuff is to have tax increases. So I just want to bring that up so that everyone is taking a look at of the implications of these things.
And I think that's why we need to know what every department needs, because if at some point we have to look at that, it's not to fund any one thing, it's what the town needs to be
But
operational.
even going ahead,
Yeah.
there's not going to be that much you have
Right.
control over, especially since the major cost is going to be personnel related.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and we also have
including
debt,
that
we also
list
have debt
are,
also, but that's
folk
minimal.
and
It is.
Bristol.
Compared to other items in the budget.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would tell us what we have.
So on a macro basis, right, one of the things, when you talk about the review of the budget, and, you know, what things are going to look like, what the drivers are, and what the timeframes are going to be for changes in tax rate and things like that. I mean, the overall feel that I have, and I've heard quite a bit about Dartmouth has a real low tax rate, and that's great. My shtick on that is, I think we need to keep it as low as we can for as long as we can. However, like you said, Brian, you know, there are things in our control and things that are not in our control. And you try and keep as much pressure on the things that we can control as possible. And one of the reasons for this group is to, in my opinion, is to do that, is to keep the focus on the things that we can really control, and try and figure out ways to mitigate any surprises and real snaps, like we've seen in a couple of departments recently on certain expenses. You know, when you don't have a controlled feel for what your budget's going to be, and you have to, you become reactive versus proactive. So this is, in my opinion, a good chance for us to be proactive as a group about things like that and make some changes that the town may be able to make in order to control our own destiny here. Go ahead.
Just one other point. I think also in that same vein, we have to be looking at revenue generation
Absolutely.
and what exactly that means to offset some of this stuff.
Yeah, and I've heard some options there come out recently, but in my personal opinion is that you can't get so granular on a specific part of town that it becomes a penalty for certain folks versus a wider spread, smaller increase across the board. You know, we all take advantage of a lot of the services that the town has. How do we spread that out among as many people as we can to have the overall impact as low as possible? You know, the reclassification is going to be interesting for me. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how competitive we are. I brought this up at I think our joint meeting, Jim. You know, I don't want to be the highest guy on the street as far as salaries go, but I also don't want to be the lowest. And right now, we're kind of bouncing off, you know, in certain areas of town, we're bouncing off the bottom a little bit. And what that does is we've got a
You get
lot
what you
of...
pay for.
Yeah, we've got a lot of competition from a lot of businesses, people that are going from public sector to private sector because of benefits, and also
That's the
other
key, it's the
towns.
benefits, Chris.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the salary can be one thing, but if we're looking at
Right.
50 grand here and 50 grand somewhere else, but then our insurance split, you know,
Yeah.
there's a 75-25.
Yeah, money's one thing,
money,
I
yeah.
agree. But the unknown is another, and the insurance can really cause a big problem with people getting anxious about the position they're in. Because when you have a high deductible plan, it's all well and good to save money, you know, every month for a high deductible plan. However, you've just, you know, changed the aspect on exactly what your family could potentially be subject to if, God forbid, somebody gets sick. So, you know, all those things obviously come into play. Chris?
Thank you. So I know from the school committee, the school district's point of view is we certainly over the years have trouble attracting and retaining highly qualified staff. And it's competitive. School districts, education's getting more and more competitive. And I know and I just bring that up I think we are the largest department in town. And certainly that, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but there have been instances in which staff have walked away, just like I'm sure from some of the other departments, that offers have been made and because of health insurance benefits. And it's key because these people, if they already have a state retirement or a county retirement, they're going to want to stay in municipal service or state service, and they're going to just go to another community. So we certainly have to keep that in mind when trying to attract the best candidates, for sure. And I think that's what all the residents want for this town.
Jim?
I think it certainly is a competitive environment for educators now, more so than it's ever been. And we're seeing that. And I think that while we're not included in the classification and compensation study, we just did collective bargaining last year and have lots of data about how we compare with other districts, and unfortunately, we're below average. So we're well below average in compensation for staff, and our benefits package is not as good as some of our competitors. So that puts us at a distinct disadvantage, for sure.
And now, are you able to share that information? Are we
Yeah, I
lockstep
absolutely can.
right now?
I absolutely can share that, yeah.
Yeah, that would be good, just to give us some perspective, as we talk about One Dartmouth, we want to make sure that we're communicating properly between all levels of town in order to make sure that we're wholly educated on what the pitfalls are as we go forward, so.
One of the other things that we've talked about when we talk about taxes, and this, the select board will be hearing more from the assessors in a couple of weeks, but it's one thing to look at our taxes that we charge, assessor lens, but keeping that in mind when we're looking at other communities, we need to know what other communities also, so we're talking about apples and apples, is what are we also have we have our property tax bill, but then we also have our water, sewer, trash, fire. So we have to think about all of those.
Don't forget the beach stickers.
Well,
We
and
gotta
as
pay.
each of those go up, what is that total picture?
Right.
So I think it's a little, when we say, we have our tax base is low. Yes, but how does it compare to, do others, are they including the fire tax in that? Is there, do they have these water and sewer bills, or is that,
Absolutely, you're going to do a comparison,
Right, we need to know all of it.
Yeah, Janine?
We also have to take into account, because I've seen in the past where we compared ourselves to other towns, and we didn't take into account whether or not the other towns had a split tax. So we say we're low, but then you look at other towns, you have to say, is their tax also split between commercial, industrial, and residential? It's a big difference.
Yeah. Good point. What about the audit, Gary? Does anybody even look at the audit?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously you guys do,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first time in a long time that I had recommended that the audit be public.
Okay.
And
Well, the audit's always public.
It's always
been
public, but-
We haven't done a presentation.
presentation, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the audit's always public, that's correct. But whether or not, there's a version that we can put out there that's a little bit more explainable, nobody wants to go through 800 pages of.
It's a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lot, yeah.
Maybe that's something we can work with our auditors, maybe to pull out some key points of the audit that makes it a little bit more reader-friendly.
So what would be just throw a typical one out, an audit conclusion from this year?
So,
If there is a-
unlike previous years, in previous years' audits, they're no longer required to submit a management comment. They used to, they no longer have to, so they don't.
Like the executive summary?
Right,
Yeah.
so we pull through that audit and we comb through, both the accountant and I, and look at key items, whether, they want to make recommendations for instance, they made a recommendation for collections of the water and sewer bills, where we were also collecting water sewer bills, we were also generating them in the same office. So we then split that out. So we read through that and have conversations with them when we have a final meeting. But that's kind of behind the scenes. If we're looking for a document that's a little bit, as I mentioned, a little more user-friendly, people can understand the audit, we can probably put something down. I mean, because they're watching a minute, a 2-minute presentation or a 5-minute presentation on TV, and are they really understanding the entire audit?
Right.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I bring it up is that, after going through it, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So an executive summary would be really helpful. When we talk about, clarity and communication with everything that the town has to deal with, it's always helpful to let the vendors know that there are eyes on this. Traditionally, the audits for some of the nonprofits that I've been involved in, you get the audit, you vote on the audit goes in the book, and nobody even looks at it. So the fact that we have eyes on it, that we're making recommendations to them about how we want it presented to us, I think are really important. Because now you're buying scrutiny, right? And if we're not showing them that we're paying attention to it and that we want certain things included in it, then you lose that scrutiny, as far as I'm concerned. And anybody can talk to that. So I think that was important. One of the things that, for me, in this past one, I didn't see anything about an alert for the enterprise funds. I went back and I looked at it and I said, geez, where, did they throw even a yellow flag at us and say, hey, we should be looking at this? I didn't see it. If it was in there, and I might have missed it. But as long as they know that we're looking at it, and, it's important to the town to have this, this outside party looking at it, the scrutiny will be there. But I think it's good for town, like you said, to have it available to all the taxpayers so they can look at it. We have a lot of accountants in this town, so I'm sure it'll be nice Sunday reading for them. But it's important to have that. The executive summary would be great, so that recommendation can be made to them as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Jane?
okay, sorry.
This might not be completely related, but specific to the water and the enterprise fund, is I think a lot of town residents have no knowledge of what an enterprise fund is. They think that the water sewer department just arbitrarily raised the taxes. I think it's somehow, I know it's an education thing, we need to make folks understand how and why that happened. I know we all probably think we explained it, and those of us who sat in meetings think it's explained, but not to the town residents.
Well, I think this DCTV portion would be good. Gary, not to put you on the spot, but if you can give us like a high level, quick and dirty on exactly what an enterprise fund is, so people that aren't involved in it like we are have a better understanding.
Yeah, sure. So, enterprise funds have been around in state legislature for quite some time. I would say at least 30 to 40 years. And the idea was to have them self-supported on rates, whether it's trash, water, sewer. DCTV is also an enterprise fund, so that they're self-supportive, so that it's pulled away from the general fund. And sometimes you'll see in a lot of communities where those enterprise funds are underperforming, so they have to be on their own. They don't draw down the general fund. That's really typically what happens with a lot of these when they're first developed. And so Dartmouth back in the day did that, and not necessarily because the funds were underperforming, but because they wanted to track them separately. and they wanted to make sure that, water was being charged properly, the sewer was being charged properly, and ran them as separate entities. Almost like the fire districts. You don't consider a fire district an enterprise fund, but in essence, it runs the same way. Obviously, they don't have their own town meeting, but they're separated from the general fund for certain reasons, and some of those are the ones I just mentioned.
And, getting back to Heidi's point, you really, when you do a comparison to other towns, you need to have all of those things taken into consideration, and separate us from the ones that really don't make sense from a comparative standpoint. Chris?
Gary, for anyone watching, enterprise funds, are they just meant to maintain the operations, or should we be tapping them for capital as well in an ideal world?
So typically, in all enterprise funds, they have their own reserve fund. So they
Okay.
generate their own, as we generate free cash, they generate retained earnings. So any kind of capital improvements that are done in those particular enterprise funds are supplemented with either a conventional borrowing that they're allowed to have, or through retained earnings. So anytime you see a capital project that's being requested from CIPC, the funds are being drawn on each one of those separate retained earning accounts. They all have their
Town
own separate
meeting,
retained
when
earnings.
Yeah.
we're asking it, but some is out of the general fund.
Yes.
You'll see
yeah,
it on the
yeah,
warrant,
Yeah, it's through,
the funding source.
it's through the enterprise. Yep.
Yes.
The
Understood.
things that the enterprise fund is not bound to is 2.5. Our general taxes are bound by that, but enterprise funds can change, can fluctuate beyond 2.5. So when you talk about some municipalities do not have enterprise funds, and their problem is that they're bound then for these departments to function solely within the 2.5. So there is a benefit in that way, that when those enterprise funds, additional funding is needed, they can request beyond the 2.5%.
But the issue for taxpayers is more money out of your pocket
Right,
regardless.
right.
As
I'm
you,
just-
as you were alluding to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why we have to be, we include per thousand, we have to include these others as well.
Yeah, one of the things I'm interested in, and I never heard who actually controls the fire districts. I mean, I know there's a history of three different ones, but it seems to me there's a lot of duplication. And the original, as far as I can figure out, when they were originally started, there was a good reason for it, because there were long distances involved.
If you ask them now, there's still a good reason for it.
Okay, well-
That is
Well-
beyond our purview.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Absolutely. They are independent, 3 independent organizations. They
So
are.
you'd have to make, I'm not saying we do this,
Yeah.
but you'd have to make a case at each fire district
Yes,
about
you
why
would.
it.
Yes, you would.
All right.
They're very specific on what the zone that they cover.
Yep,
The fees are all different
Yep.
at each of those districts, those 3 districts, depending on which one your amount of money is different, and their responsibilities are different. So some have a retail corridor, some do not. Some include schools, some do not. Some include the university and the sheriff's department, which are not taxed the same way. So
I
it's,
have a headache.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it's a good point, Ryan.
But, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's-
not without merit, but
Well, I think it should be on the list someplace.
I don't know that it can be on our list.
Not, well, it should be alluded to, because it's what we get taxed when you add it all up.
Beth?
It needs to come from the people within the district.
I understand that,
Because
but you have to, oh, sorry.
those are the people who are paying. And just to the public enterprise funds, one of the major points is, if you're on a well and you have your own septic, you're not paying for
Right.
town water and sewage. So, and if you're not using the dump, you have a personal pickup service, you don't pay. It's a good way to not charge people for things they're not using.
Which on the
well-
flip
Well,
side
I
then.
can think of other things, too.
Right.
But then
I
on
can
the flip
too.
side of that, it makes it difficult when we're saying overall, we need to look at more funding to protect, to correct an issue that we have in town, and then you have people that say, but I don't use that service.
Yeah, but we all use the roads,
Right.
and we all benefit from the schools, whether we have children in the schools or not.
And that
Real
can be a
estate
hard sell.
prices, crime,
Yeah,
engage
you know,
citizenry.
it's a good point. and there's been several studies done that have made the same argument for public water and sewer, actually. Because when you have public utilities, you get more economic development. You know, take the Cape as an example. They've struggled significantly with wastewater, and one of the reasons that a lot of towns in the Cape don't have significant economic development is that reason exactly. If you're going in with a large-scale project, you're putting a wastewater treatment plant in, a small wastewater treatment plant. They don't do it. So there can be a benefit argument made to public utilities, or better for everybody in town too. But you don't see, when we look at the overall cost, we'll look at things like solid waste. We won't include water and sewer because that's truly based on the user, and no community includes your sewer in your tax bill. You always pay a separate sewer bill. There are some communities that include your solid waste. You know, solid waste is included in your general tax bill. You don't pay a separate fee for that. So we can look at that, but I would say we steer clear from water and sewer, because in any community, if you have public water and sewer, you're paying a fee for it. It's never included in your tax bill. And the fire district's another important note too, because in most communities, that's part of your just regular tax bill.
I've always felt that the fire district questions in this town, in my view, have always been like a third rail, right? And a lot of people will agree with me, some may not. But, you know, the fact that Brian brings it up is an important thing for this group. And the reason I say that is because I don't think we need to have anything off this table for discussion. I'd like to see communication across every aspect of what the general public is paying in this town as a property owner, whether it's in an enterprise fund, the districts, the taxes, anything like that. Because it all goes to the pressure brought on your family budget, whether you are on septic or sewer, whether you're taking water, you have a well. To me, it doesn't care. I'll defer to the group, but I think I don't think there's anything off the table when it comes to trying to figure out exactly how, even in this case, how we can save the district. How can the town in certain areas, and up for discussion, can the town in certain pockets of the service that they deliver assist the districts in our town in order to help them lower their expenses? Because if we can lower their expenses, then, and we can discuss that with them, and it makes sense, then we bring it up and we do it because it's lowering the overall cost to the citizens. I don't have any specific examples.
We do some of that. I mean, so dispatch is a good example.
Okay.
You know, we do all the dispatch, for the fire districts. That's housed at the police department. The collections, that goes all through the collector's office. That's centralized here. We prepare the bills. The assessors have the independent hearings for each of the districts. We send out the bills, and we take in the collections and pass on the money over to the district. So there is certainly some of that already.
So there's already overlap and even the third rail discussions that we might be able to have here.
So
that's
maybe
good.
Maybe
That's
a way
great.
to do it would be, as I was suggesting, is look at the things that we can control, that we have control over, things that are subject to market forces and things that are not, and then create another list saying these are the other things that impact the bill, like fire districts and all the other.
Absolutely.
And then use that as a way to inform people about what they pay.
If you want to clarify the information about the fire districts, because it seems like everybody has a thought about it, then I highly recommend you bring in the 3 fire chiefs or representatives from their prudential committees which manage their budgets of each district, and they can answer the questions so we're not guessing.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'd be more than willing to actually
Yes,
do
they
that.
would
So
be, I know that.
That would be a good idea to have them come in and at least for the public, we know a lot about exactly what their budgets look like and things like that,
Yeah.
and how they're administered, but for the general public, it might be a good opportunity for them to.
They have a budget process, much like the
Exactly,
town does.
yeah.
They have an annual meeting, much like the town does.
Yeah.
And of course, they have monthly meetings.
Yeah, so for me anyway, just before we get into the income side of this stuff, or regionalization or anything like that, Jim, can you talk a little bit about any of the outliers that you have in the school department? I know that salaries are always top of the list, or at least one or two. But
Yeah, I mean, so we settled all our collective bargaining agreements last spring, as I mentioned, and that was the first time that we had settled contracts before the expiration of the contracts in a long time. So that was a good accomplishment, but being that we are sort of below average in terms of what we offer, those contracts were, for instance, the teacher's contract, which is the biggest contract that we have, was 3%, 3.5%, 3.5% over the 3 years. This being the 3% year right now that we're in, fiscal year '26. So what happens with those contracts is that there are also steps similar to other collective bargaining agreements we have in town. So a 3.5% raise plus folks moving up on steps, and result is you have, in the end, that contract costs about 4.5%. So you're starting from there with that contract, and then we have some other contracts like the former teachers' assistants, now called education support professionals, where they were really underpaid significantly, and so a larger adjustment was made on those contracts. So then now you're up above 4.5%. So salaries are 80% of our budget, and you can kind of figure out where this is going, where, you're approaching a 5% increase in salaries for fiscal year '27. And then, in addition to that, you might have seen, well, there was just an article in the paper regarding special education costs in Dartmouth Week. But we've been, over the last few years, showing what our student population looks like in terms of how it's changed here in Dartmouth. And I think that it's important to know that there are more kids that are low income and more kids with special needs in Dartmouth than there have ever been. And that's increasing dramatically. It's a pretty steep slope. So, for instance, in the last year, our special ed population has increased 2%. Now, 2%, okay, maybe that's not a big number, but the costs of educating students with special needs are very significant. So a 2% increase can be, it can be a huge budgetary impact. One student can be a huge budgetary impact in special needs.
with special needs, Jim, the transportation aspect of it.
Transportation aspect is significant. Depending on the needs of the kids, what we do in the schools to support kids, it's more intensive than educating a student without special needs. And then there are cases where we cannot educate a student in the schools and have to send them to an out-of-district placement, in which that cost can be $300,000.
Right.
Plus transportation.
Plus transportation
Yeah.
for one student. Now, that's not the typical cost, but we have students that are $300,000 out-of-district tuition. So,
Wow.
And I
those
think-
are the biggest,
I think it's also important to note for everyone is that these aren't arbitrary decisions that the district makes, right? That Dartmouth Public Schools makes to place these students in alternative learning environments. This is something that there's a state process to the IEP, Individual Education Plan, and this is something that is worked out. And ultimately, certainly, we can deny services. That's something that could happen, but ultimately, parents do have the option to take it to the state. And just like other things, that the state can rule on it, and ultimately, we're still responsible. So I think it's important to note that these aren't decisions that, are taken lightly.
yeah.
Could I ask a question on the special,
Sure.
has the analysis been done, whether it's advantageous for the town to educate them in district?
Yeah.
And send them out? I
Yeah,
mean, what is-
a great example of that, and I was going to bring it up next. so we created a couple of years ago a program called the Atlas Program. You might remember Gary in the budget process. So this program educates students who don't graduate high school on time, but we're responsible for till the age of 22. That's the law. So our Atlas program provides services for these kids to gain life experience, to hopefully, have
Just
a
an
more
article in
productive.
Dartmouth Week as
Yeah,
well, in the
yeah,
Atlas
yeah.
program.
Have a more productive life, once they age out at age 22. So we created that program a couple of years ago, and we knew what students were headed that way because they've been in our district. So this year, we have less than 10 kids in the program. Next year, we're going to have 14.
Wow.
Now, those kids,
That's a lot.
minimum cost would be $60,000 each if we send them out, minimum. And most of those students would need additional services, sometimes a one-to-one education support professional, sometimes, but they would all need additional services.
And it's the law that we educate them till they're 22.
It is. So, it's on, as we were talking about the out of our control list. That was one of the things that I already jotted down for myself to report back. But we're saving a great deal of money in that program. But in our budget process for this year, which is not yet public, we're meeting with the budget subcommittee next week, but I'll share this one. Those 14 kids, we can't effectively service those kids with the staff that we have. So we are proposing a job coach position who will be able to drive those students to employment opportunities, to learning to go to the grocery store and shop for themselves, learning all daily life skills. But we just can't manage 14 with the existing staff. However, it's still a good investment, right?
So
Because-
the cost of that job coach is going to be less than what
Yeah,
it would cost?
it's gonna be less than one
follow us,
student.
right, yeah.
Never mind, four
Yeah.
additional. Anyway, yes, is the answer, that we do look at that. There are challenges to that. We have 2 open special ed positions now that we've been unable to fill all year. I think that speaks back to the, competitive nature of our employment here. Those people can make more money elsewhere and have better benefits. So we're not getting applicants.
How many overall positions do you have available through the district?
Those are the only 2 long-term vacancies that we have. Occasionally something will happen throughout the year. We might have a couple other things posted, but those are the only 2 that, we've not managed to fill at all. But what I have done throughout, my 15 years here is always budget the savings from potential vacancies. So if we know about a resignation, or more likely we'll know about retirements during the budget process, we'll budget savings there in those positions. We're not getting savings anymore. So the people that do apply are coming in at the very high end of our salary schedule. So the limited pool of applicants, it's not like it used to be where you could hire a teacher, who.
For step.
Yeah, step 1 has maybe a master's, but, fresh out of school, that's not happening. There's nobody going to work here for that, for what we pay. So we're paying high end, so hence we're not seeing that saving. So that's sort of disappeared from our budget process.
And the other piece in the overall school department budget is the VOC assessment and the Bristol Aggie assessment.
Right.
Those are just bills that come and must be paid.
Nothing to
There's
do with
nothing
us, but-
negotiated.
Yeah.
No negotiation there. Having gone to the Dartmouth Day at VOC, Mr. Watson explained that, they're going to be looking in the future add an addition or renovation to the school. They're not looking for a total rebuild, but they're going to have significant renovations because the population is going up. Well, of course, a percentage of that cost comes to us. He was like, well, don't worry, that's not for like 5 years. Well, that is a problem for us, because our long-term, my thing is back to long-term planning, include that in year 5, that 5 years from now, we're going to be expected to pay a bill that's coming from Voc.
Yeah, it's important because you see what happened down in Rochester.
Yes.
With that number. And everybody was kind of caught off guard.
Yeah.
Brian?
Well, everyone knows that the largest hunk of money we pay is schools. I think it's running about, 57% now of the total budget?
Yep.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And I would venture to say that most people in this town don't understand how the budget operates and how much control the town actually has when it comes to state requirements or anything else. So the first reaction is, oh, we get a fight every year about a budget override. But people can't really understand it because the number of students are going down. And so I think one of the things that this group has to do on some level is educate the people in Dartmouth who have a stake in the schools, in the school system, to understand what the constraints are and why the budget goes up, because we can't fill positions. The state requires that we send people out that have the special needs. I'm sure there's a host of things that I don't know about that we just don't have any control over. And I think if people understood that, and understood, I think I have an idea of how they should understand it, we would have less of a battle every year about increasing the school budget.
To your point, Brian, I think I guess I would ask, what do you think is the best way to do that? Because we've tossed this around over the years about educating folks, doing a road show, being transparent. Would getting more documents on our website kind of,
No, I think
more transparency?
I think the issue.
What's the best way, I guess?
I could come up with a list, but not right
Yeah,
now.
no,
But,
sure.
but I think-
I'd love to hear it.
I think the biggest issue for me is it's a structural deficit, because I projected the data one day. I don't know, I don't have it off the top of my head, but the school budget is growing like 0.5% more
Yeah.
than everything else.
I think you and I had conversations in previous meetings about
Yeah,
that.
so I think people have to understand why that is happening. It's not just because you guys on the school committee make arbitrary decisions, which is why I'm kind of suspecting most people say, oh, the school committee make arbitrary decisions, because they really don't know. So I think there's a value gap that the schools have to somehow, we all have constituencies for what we want to spend money on, and I think there's a value gap that the schools have to somehow explain to the town why things are the way they are and why that number is going up and will continue to go up.
I think it's going to be very important that we speak for every department. Because why is this? Why do we have to pay more this year on trash than we did last year? Why is there talk about the orange bags going up to $5 from $2? Why is that? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we have to explain as a town. And I think we can do that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, we can do a DCTV thing, and then DCTV can roll it out, people can find it on YouTube.
Right.
But what I'm going to tell you is, having rolled out long-term capital roadshow, we had 3. One focused on the schools, one focused on DPW, one focused on
General government.
general
Yeah, yeah.
projects. The turnout in person was pitiful.
I was at the one at the middle school.
We were talking to ourselves.
Yeah, but how many
You know,
clicks did it have
Right.
on YouTube?
Right. So that's why I'm
Still
saying.
not great, honestly.
Yeah, no. So, and when you read the feedback that people posted afterwards on social media, it's, people just continue to spitball information.
Well, I think it has to be a continuous flow of information. It can't just be, so that means annually, whatever it is that
I think
explains
it
it.
needs it more than annually.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
at least annually, you explain the town explains how the budget is put together and how our hands are tied in certain areas. And they also explain to people, I think 70% of the folks, 70% of the families in Dartmouth don't, 70% of the people that live in Dartmouth don't have any connection with the schools. And somebody has to, and that's what I was talking about, a value gap. Somebody has to explain to those 70% of the people who don't have any connection with the schools why it's important to have good schools.
So I guess we can explain it all day. It's a matter of how do we get people to listen?
Right.
How do we get people to listen? And is that a function of, I don't,
I think-
do we start at one of these meetings? Do we go down a list of just some of the fixed, well, Jim kind of just went over some of
Yeah.
the fixed costs.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So let's think about it.
I
We don't have
look
to
at
solve
it,
it
I look at it
today.
this way.
Right.
I look at, it's funny, sometimes the way I look at things, but, you talk about Fons Corner Road, oh, the traffic's awful, traffic's terrible, I get stuck in a light, on and on and on and on. I look at that as a point of success for this town. You know, the work, what's the alternative? The alternative is always, there's no traffic on Fons Corner Road. What does that mean? The mall's dead.
Right.
Guess what? Your taxes are going up because we don't have the income from the commercial base. So there's always a flip side. I appreciate the fact that, you know, the school department is looking at ways to keep these positions competitive. And when you're not at the highest level for one piece of it, say the salaries, but you're trying to backfill with a better benefit program, you're trying to hire the education specialists to assist those, you know, top-tier salary positions. That all has an impact. We talked about the police department in this last year, and it was interesting to me to hear that the police in this town want to work in this town. You know, it's not just because of the money. They could probably go somewhere else and make 10 points, you know, but they choose not to. And I find the same thing with the school department, with the salaries and the people that are working in the school department. As long as we continue to look for ways to backfill these positions with support. Support is a huge thing. When you've got 30 kids in a class and you have zero support, guess what? They're looking somewhere else, you know, in my opinion.
And I think-
and after listening to my wife, you know, she, I get it. But go ahead,
To
Chris.
your point, Mr. O'Neill, that I think that you'll find across these departments in this town, including the school department, including the police department, that a lot of the people that work in these departments grew up in this town, and they're taking the hometown advantage.
Yeah.
100%. I guarantee you that a significant number of these staff that work across all of our departments take a lower salary because they grew up and they're giving back to this town.
And their family is here.
and their
And so
families.
when we look at that, that was an argument I had made at one point when we were talking about, do we need an override to fund the benefit package? I'm sitting there looking at the teachers holding signs, knowing they're residents of Dartmouth. So I'm taking with one hand to put in another. So I'm going to give them a better benefit package by raising their taxes.
That's
You
true.
know,
That's
it doesn't, that's like, I got my hand in both pockets.
Right.
So,
Right.
let me just finish on that thought with Fons Corner Road. The viewership for these meetings and the participation that we have at some of these community meetings is pretty low. I look at that one way. I look at that we're having these type of meetings. You know, that we did a road show in general, that people could see it online. You know, that maybe you didn't get a lot of viewers online. To me, that's success. If people were really PO'd about the amount that they're paying for their trash removal, then guess what? They were going to be at that DPW meeting, you know? So there's a breaking point, you know? There's a breaking point for interest in people. They all have their own lives. We have our own lives. You go on, you do the best you can. I think the level of participation at some of the town meetings is indicative of the amount of information they have available to them, and the fact that you get people that care. You know, they're doing their job. They're working hard to make sure that those tax bills are as low as they can be. You know, they know that we're not going to go out and go for, you know, a 2.5 override if we don't need it. You know, so we're going to try and wring out as much as we can in order to make it
But
make
by the
sense.
same token, I think if we need a 2.5 override, we have to start that as
Ahead of
early as
time.
we possibly
I
can.
completely
And
agree.
explain the reasons. And if it's being driven by the largest department in the town, then people have to be very transparent about why why it's being driven by the biggest department in the town, and why it's important, that's what I was talking about, a value gap, why it's important for not only the people that have kids in school, but also for the people who live in town, why it's important to have good schools.
Yeah.
And you got to start that right in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that the meeting that we had with the select board, the joint meeting, brought out some of those reasons. In my opinion, it's always been about property values. You know, you have people willing to move into this town with kids. They're fighting to get into this town now if they can afford it. They're fighting financially to get in this town because we've got a system that cares. And we're doing the best we can to fund it properly and make sure they get a good education.
I think interesting, but I mean, there are things too, like if you go look at the population growth in Dartmouth, it's flat.
Yeah,
To declining. And while people always talk about the value of their houses going up, it's an illiquid asset. So it can go up all at once. You got to live someplace.
I think that number's probably going to increase over the next 2 years. The way things are going, Brian, for sure.
But my
Yeah,
point
I
is,
get it.
I mean, it's a good thing, but how does that affect me on a day-to-day basis living in Dartmouth? And I
Well,
think,
one of the things that, you know, when you're talking about, which I believe you're alluding to the building of a number of 40B projects.
Correct.
So the issue with the 40B projects, depending on which project it is it can be built faster than
what is a 40B,
any.
sorry?
Oh,
again,
sorry,
I
a
forget.
40B project is the housing projects. The 40B means that there's a component of affordable housing
Oh,
within the
okay, right,
project.
yeah, okay,
So
that's what I
that's what the
thought. Okay,
40B
yeah.
stands for. So those projects can be built much faster than any of the infrastructure that we need built in town to support that. That will be built, those residential structures will be built before repairs or additions to the water treatment plant.
The infrastructure,
Can be
yeah.
made. Before whatever we need at a school where those particular properties are located can support an influx of new students.
I was
Those will
at the
happen
two
first.
hearings
Yeah.
with Heidi.
If you want to see a lot.
ZBA.
ZBA is well
They're,
attended.
yes, it's concerning, just listening to them say they're proposing a 300-unit development on Hathaway Road. They have the 128 units, I believe, on Tucker Road. They have the one down across from Cask and Pig off of Route 6, Old Westport Road. And you hear just, not even schools. I shared with Jim, I said, I heard that, you know, it sounds like we're approaching that 80% threshold at wastewater treatment. And all of these projects are looking to tie into wastewater, it sounds like. So to
Yeah,
me.
none of them are well.
That's
Yeah.
concerning. They're taxing our infrastructure, their water, sewer, our roads. I'm curious to see the next one at March about traffic.
But this is a state mandate again.
It is a state mandate, 100% agreed, but clearly these developers there's a component of low income. Not all 300 of those units.
No, I understand,
will-
yeah.
will be that.
However, it's a rental, we get to count all 300 as a rental.
Yes.
So that's a better than the ones that are being built and sold outright, that we only get to count
Agreed.
25%.
Agreed.
But every time we build, we've got numbers on both sides. So it's, and only when we achieve that 10% can there then be a stoppage. But what the state is mandating as far as housing, the state makes unfunded mandates of the school system,
Right.
of the town. The
Right.
state makes these grandiose plans, you know, when they were talking about bringing the rail system down and what the rail communities had to do. You must do this. We're not giving you any money to do it, but you must do this.
Well, I think that's why people in town have to understand what we have control over and what we don't. And then make a decision on what they want to spend money on.
Right.
Yeah, you've got your housing production plan, you've got the general master plan for the town, where people can come out, talk about all these issues, become part of a solution versus just sitting on Facebook complaining about everything under the sun.
After
Go
the
ahead,
fact.
Janine. After the fact, yeah. Janine.
As Heidi already alluded to about the attendance at the zoning board meetings, how do we explain that difference? Because I went to both types of meetings, and it's a vast difference. So why are they flooding the town hall for that versus coming to the other meetings? I know there's not really an answer to that
It is.
question.
I think it's clear.
NIMBY, not in my backyard,
Not
right?
in my,
More
yeah.
personal.
They were all
They are
residents.
coming, it's not necessarily just in their backyard, people that are coming, because I know at the last meeting, apparently, we split who could come in the room versus who wasn't, so it wasn't just abutters.
But they were let in for.
By project. I
The
believe.
project, by project. So when Tucker Road was here, Hathaway Road was outside, then Tucker Road left, Hathaway Road came in, which Hathaway Road had just as many concerning
But
people.
either way, why?
Yeah.
Well, it might be union organizations.
I mean, it certainly is in
No, I
their
don't think so.
backyard about
These
building
are all
and
people I could
fences.
identify. They're not, it's not people from other communities coming to sit. I can identify the residents that are sitting there. I'm there because I wear a different hat. I'm there because I want to be educated on all aspects and see what the concerns are,
So do you have a theory on why people show up for these things?
because this is impacting them.
I showed up because I was on the school committee.
Well, as I said,
Yeah, but-
obviously, it's
Yeah.
not in my backyard
Backyard, yeah.
either, and I went to the,
Yeah.
went to the meetings, but.
But most of the
okay.
people around us and hearing and watching their facial expressions, this is because that there's going to be more cars in their neighborhood, there's going to be more people in their neighborhood, there's going to be potentially lights, there's going to, a lot of people are talking about, where are they going to park,
But how do you inspire them to go, I mean, DPW, I'm sorry, that's in everybody's backyard as far as
Right.
DPW costs, or school costs, that's everybody's cost. I'm just, as I said, there's not a good answer to it.
Well,
No.
I think it's up to the town to make sure that all that sort of stuff is somehow communicated better than what we're currently doing now, which means you have to be proactive. If you know there's going to be a budget increase, or you know that, and it's being driven by 2-3 departments, you have to get out way in front of it and explain why that is.
Yeah, I think the difference between the expectation and reality, that's where the frustration lies, right? You need to make sure the expectations are proper, they're at the right levels. I think the level of communication that I've experienced personally with these guys recently has been, not recently, the last couple of years, has been on the incline, right? So much more proactive than reactive, which brings the frustration level down and the expectations.
And I think somebody ultimately has to say, guess what? We're not going to have cheap taxes here in Dartmouth anymore.
Yeah, we're trying like hell.
Yeah.
I think we all are. I think
Yeah.
we're all trying to keep the numbers, to a level that makes all the sense in the world. When the state comes down and they tell you, well, you got to increase your tax. We're not going to give you any Chapter
Look for
70. We're
us,
not
yeah,
gonna-
us, yeah.
91, forget it. Well, okay, how do we do that? Without making sure that everything we have in this budget that we can control, going back to the original premise, that we can control is under control, and that we have a good stronghold on it. I'm not sure exactly how long these meetings are scheduled for.
I got a hard stop at 11:30.
Yeah, I think if you, probably a good idea to cut them off after 90 minutes.
What's
I
that?
think 90 minutes is probably a good. I wouldn't
So
try to
good,
go much more than 90
so 15
minutes.
minutes left, right?
So, but
Go ahead.
along the same lines, frequency
Of,
The meetings?
of these sort of meetings.
oh, that's something we need to discuss.
What's that?
The frequency.
Frequency.
How often does this group want to meet?
And time.
Yeah.
And where,
Time
and
of day.
when?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously, it all comes down to exactly what your needs are. The information that you need to present to people, to talk about, the issues that we have in town, the things that we need to illuminate for the public and make sure that some issues come across in the public that may not in other department meetings. That's an important aspect to this. I'd like to talk a little bit more about regionalization. What opportunities do we have regionally? I know that we did some work with our HR departments, with the school department and throughout the town that may have had a pretty positive impact on both. Things like that. What opportunities do we have between parks and DPW? Are we making sure that we're taking advantage of all of those things in order to drive overall expense down? I'd like to get some more data from Gary and Cody about those types of things.
Well, sadly, I would think that right now, in lieu of in June, my goal would be that in June, the bag, our budget advisory group would be able to include a letter to town meeting members or speak at town meeting about what we've learned, what we've looked at for expenses, where we have found that we can share costs, how are we looking to save the taxpayers' money, and ultimately that we are supporting the budget that's being presented that day. To do that, I don't think we can just meet once a month.
No.
I think we need to meet more frequently now, in preparation of that, always looking for the end in mind. And then I think after that, there's a period of, we can return to a monthly meeting just to keep our foot on the gas. I don't think this is a group that we can say, our job is done. After we're looking at the FY27 budget, okay, what did we learn? How much tighter is FY28 going to be? Because one of the things that, although the school department has negotiated contracts for the next 3 years, on the town side, we only negotiated a 1-year bridge contract for this year, so that we could get the information from the comps and class study, we could get over the hiring of a town administrator, so we could kind of write the sails on our side of the ship. So we then will be going into negotiations. And I think then this committee is going to be, again, after, we go through June, looking ahead at FY28.
Yeah,
I
and that
think there'll be a
goes- that
lull,
goes
and then
to-
we'll be back to twice a month.
That goes to what
sadly.
you said, Brian, about trying to make sure that the public's aware of what's coming, what's going on,
Well,
and educating.
I think, in my opinion, I think the biggest department in the town budget has to be, if we all agree there is a structural deficit, then we have to really be able to explain early on why the biggest department is having that structural deficit, and this is why things are gonna go up in terms of taxes. And what I would like to avoid is like having a battle every year about 2.5 overrides. If
That'd be
people-
great.
If
Well,
people, if
and
people,
I-
if people can understand why
But I
things are
think we
going
have
up.
to look across the Commonwealth. The Dartmouth Public Schools are not the only school department over 50% of the budget. That's pretty standard
standard.
across.
Right.
So some of the things that Dartmouth is dealing with, the increasing cost of special ed, the increasing cost of, is what they're all doing. But I think the other piece is going back to the one Dartmouth. We can't have the best school department in the Commonwealth at the cost to every other department in our town. So we have to know, what do our other departments need? Like, I'm hoping we sit and we find out per capita, we have the right number of officers. The officers have the right amount of training, the right amount of weaponry, the right amount of cars, or whatever they need. I want to know about DPW. I brought up at our last select board meeting a constituent concern, about the lack of shoveling across the bridge. Like, we want to go after residents, but if we're not taking over town stuff, we have to do that. So does DPW have enough people? Do they have enough equipment to do that?
They use ours.
Right.
It's my equipment and it was broken. That's why it didn't get done.
Well, there's shared services, but we have a problem if it's
But I
broken.
think, just going
Yeah.
back to the schools again, I don't think our objective is to have we'd like to have the best school district.
Yes, we would. That was saying,
No, I would be happy in the top 20.
Well, I think if you.
I'd be happy in
instead of, what are we, 217?
We're in the middle.
No, we're not.
Oh,
in the
we're
middle.
not.
Below the middle?
We're in the bottom
we're at the bottom.
third.
Oh, okay.
We're-
So I think.
Not in terms of.
Academic success.
Oh, yeah.
That's
no.
what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Not- I think.
Which is what I care about.
And
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, and I think I think spending has to be tied to outcomes on some level. Now, what that means is, I don't know. But I think people have to understand in the town that there are objectives to be met, and when the objectives are met, the trends are going this way, and it's worth spending money on. Which I don't think people understand that.
So I certainly.
My only concern with spending tied to outcomes are students are not outcomes. If I'm in a manufacturing business, okay, and I'm producing denim pants,
Yeah.
if the pant comes out the other side of the machine with two legs and a way to get in, whether that's in a zipper or an elastic, and my legs, when I shoot them in, can actually come out, I've had success.
Right.
We just heard about this program. The students that are in the Atlas program, their outcome of being a productive member of society is very different than another student's outcome.
How about increasing the number of at-risk children that graduate?
I think one of the things that.
I don't even want to
just-
say it.
That's a good
What?
point, but we just need to be
Yeah,
cognizant,
well-
that's not the point of this.
No, that's
Right, right.
That is the school committee's role to do that, and so this is, we just want to be careful of the duplication of
Right,
efforts.
but you still have to tie whatever
Absolutely.
you're doing to objectives in spending. Sorry.
Thank you for interrupting with that comment, because I agree. We need to get back to the agenda, I think, if we want to depart on time.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there are important things to discuss.
Probably the meeting schedule, if we, time of day, days of week, and then I would recommend we schedule maybe the next 4 or 5 meetings if possible, because it gets to be a very busy time of year with the
Agreed.
budget, so.
I would just ask for those of us who may have another
Earning a
job.
living?
You mean a day job?
Yes, just if we could do it first thing in the morning or later in the afternoon.
What time is first thing in the morning?
I could do as early as 8 o'clock.
I could do earlier, whatever makes people happy.
Really late.
Just early or late, that's all I ask.
Early or late, it really depends on the day, honestly.
I would prefer,
I could do 3, I could come as early as, I just
Eight.
need to balance it off at the beginning or end.
I would like to suggest that we do it early, at least until we get started, and figure out what our agenda is going to be, and then you can change it as you go along, depending on the agenda.
All right. Next 2 at 8 o'clock?
That sounds
Next
Next
Tuesday.
2 meetings at 8 o'clock?
Okay.
On what day of the week?
What's today?
Today's a Tuesday.
The 11th, 13th.
So I'm sorry, you're looking
No,
at,
today's the 13th. The next one would be the 20th.
are you looking at the 20th at 8 AM?
Yep.
Oh, we're talking about
Next 2
every
weeks.
Oh,
week?
wow, next week.
Every
I think maybe do 2.
Not every other.
Maybe
Every
do
other-
2
every other.
meetings, yeah.
I think until we get started, it would be good to do it.
If you
Every-
can do
every-
next,
more
I
than-
can't do next Tuesday, 8, I already have a meeting. Not
Can we
to
do
say you
the-
can't meet without me,
Right, but no, I think we need to be here. 27th?
27th, 8 o'clock.
Sounds perfect for me.
And just to pencil in, why don't we do 2:10 at 8 o'clock also?
2:10 at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then what's the other one next week? 2 weeks.
27th, 8 o'clock.
And same,
And the 24th, February 24th.
And then we'll take a look at that. I know Nate had an issue with this.
Time.
well,
with the time,
until
yeah.
we get an agenda, I think we should meet when it's convenient. And then when we have an agenda, we can meet at other
These were-
times.
these-
Say whether he wanted early or late.
He wanted,
think it
he
was
wanted
I think he was the
evenings.
He was like
evening, in all
evenings, yeah.
honesty,
Wanted
because
evenings.
he's
So the problem that we
working.
have is we've got a lot of salaried,
Employee.
input here.
Yeah,
So-
and our evening meetings are taken
We
up
already have.
by.
Agreed.
We have no
other
problem
things.
being here, but
Yeah.
we get to, there's only
Our
so many nights a
families,
week, and,
yeah, I
well,
get
not
it.
even that, just nights during the week, we're already tied up a lot of
Yeah.
those.
So
So
we got a
mornings
lot
are
of
better
ZBA
even.
meetings
I'm
coming
sorry, the
up.
second one was February 10th?
February 10th, and then February 24th.
Oh, so we did 3.
And what was it, 10th, 24th, and 127
Yes.
127, 210, 224.
at 8 o'clock?
Yeah. So what are the deliverables? Gary, you had some information coming back, right?
We can give an update on further along in the budget process. We'll pull together some of those fixed costs.
Yep.
Jim will do the same on the school side.
210,
And we may have some other discussion points.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm also interested in, as you go through the budget process, the departments that need infrastructure or human capital. You know, I know that was something we always did at the school department. And so when I'm asking for a reading specialist, and then I hear the other school asking for something, and I go, that need is really more than what I
So,
need.
so on the
I think it
we
would be
heard a
helpful.
lot of that on the one-on-ones with the department heads. For instance, I'll give you an example of the police department. You know, they're supposed to be at a complement of like 76, and this is really, you know, no fault of the hiring process, but they'll get them in, they have to go to the academy, then they come in and they just can't pick the selection that they have is really they're not available for, to work as police officers, so that they have to go back out to the academy. So prior to COVID, it wasn't an issue. Now with COVID, you know, these rules and what the police department is looking for has gotten a lot stricter. So in an example like the police department, yeah, they came to the table and said, we wish we could have X amount of officers. We just can't fill those positions. And through the other departments, we've also, Cody and I have heard from, you know, for instance, we're looking at a business manager for the DPW. So not to say that we want to keep adding more positions, but we are hearing it from departments that are in need of human capital.
And that's important, because it's not just a salary, it's a benefit package, it's.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes,
can
sir.
we make a start, make a plea to make a start on the things we can't control?
Yeah, we'll
in the
come
budget?
together with a list.
I don't want a big detail, I just want
Yeah, a
bullet
list, yeah.
points.
And just, you know, just to make sure that we're up here, you know, this is public. This goes to the point of us bringing up some things that maybe were talked about in departments, but really not made public, and the reasons for those things. We need to make sure this is as open, honest as we can get it. Because I think, you know, down the road, we're gonna need the people in this town to back us up on some things that are gonna be necessary. So, the more information, the better.
And transparency.
Yes, absolutely. So we've got 3 dates, 3 times. Anything else?
Just to confirm,
Yep.
February 27th, I'm sorry, January 27th, the 10th, and the 24th.
24th, 8 AM.
8 a.m.
DCTV will be on all of them. Yeah, okay.
Oh, I have one other question. Minutes? Are we going to have somebody from the town do the
Yeah,
minutes?
we have someone that will take
All
care
right,
of
so we'll have minutes at the next meeting to approve.
Well, within the next couple of meetings, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if they'll be ready for the
All
next
right,
meeting.
okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right, anything else?
Don't have enough reasons.
Motion to adjourn?
Thanks for putting me in this position. I appreciate it. Motion is on the floor. All in favor?
I second. Oh.
Second. Okay. Thank you, guys.